show about cars, their owners, and the romance that surrounds them. I'm Jennifer Gatch.
And I'm Stephen Horowitz. And this is David Taylor, the owner of this beautiful car, and he'll give a description of the car and the history.
I'm so pleased to introduce Dave Taylor as events chair. He is the engine behind the events that keep the Lake Michigan region Rolls-Royce Owners Club going. He's also the newsletter editor of the USA Midwest Region Bentley Drivers Club. He's also served 2 terms as a board member of the National RROC and former chairman of both the Lake Michigan Rolls-Royce Owners Club and the USA Midwest Region of the Bentley Drivers Club. He has also served 6-year terms on the board of the English Bentley Drivers Club based in Roxton, England. He helps orchestrate the car events both locally and nationally, and is known for his witty and educational meet announcements and invitations. He writes fascinating and amusing articles for various magazines like the Bentley Drivers Club Review, the VSC Cog, and the Lake Michigan Lady. Some are circulated throughout the world. He and his beautiful wife Judy sing in the North Shore Chorale and Society and their local church choir. Dave gave his professional life a start with a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from North Park University and a master's degree at the University of Chicago, and pursued careers in secondary education and real estate development. Following his retirement from this career path in 2007, he and a small group of friends bought a farm, and they formed Iroquois Valley Farm Corporation. They leased their farm to a young farmer who wanted to grow food organically. One farm became 4 farms, and today they own and lease out 25,000 acres to young farmers who farm them and produce pure organic crops. Dave retired from farm leasing in 2017 at 77 years of age. As the event chair, he has shared his passion for architecture, and as a result, he's organized unique and extraordinary architectural heroes, including Franklin Lloyd Wright, David Adler, and Howard Van Doren Shaw. His favorite home would be the Farnsworth House. He's most well known for his tireless volunteerism, his dry sense of humor, and his steadfast sense of duty. Dave owns 4 collector cars, including the Rolls-Royce shown here today. The cars related to it are a 1960 S2 Bentley Continental Park Ward Drophead Coupe and a 1961 S2 Bentley Continental 2-door Sports Saloon with the coachwork HJ Mulliner.
Well, this is the trunk. It's kind of interesting. It's rather archaic in a sense. For instance, you see the tire pump. I doubt very much that the first owner ever actually used the tire pump, and actually kind of wears you out using it. Nonetheless, it's what Rolls-Royce always did, and so we had to have a tire pump, which contains all the tools that, once again, the owners will never use them, but I use them. They're actually very handy to have. They're the right tools for the right spot.
And they fit the car perfectly well.
And down here, kind of interestingly, you have a flashlight. Now this goes into a socket on the receptacle on the dashboard, and so you have a trouble lighter. It's not dependent on flashlight batteries, which of course are always dry, but of course the shortcoming of that is that if you extend it all the way, you've got to wrap the cord all the way back. So that gets used only sparingly.
What else is in that space? There, it looks like there's some more tools down there.
There's the handle. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now, here we find the spare tire. Now, what are we going to do with this? Well, Park Ward very thoughtfully brought around a little strap here. You can turn that. That will lock that.
Very clever.
Notice we have a beautifully cast and buffed and polished nut here just to keep the wheels, keep the spare tire locked down. If we look down here, we've got this strange gadget. That's actually the handle for the jack. We lift this out. That's the battery. We're not going to mess with that. But if you look down here, I'm sorry, this we have a screw jack. Standard steel cars all had some pressed channels and a little handle, but here you have something that actually you can probably lift your house with, and so they've this part here fits into various slots around the car. Up the back, that's what
Cranks up the jack.
You have to have the spare tire out, so it's
so you can get to it.
It's a bit of a logistic problem to get it out. But anyway, these are all kind of interesting things which you find on the Coates-built cars, which this, of course, is.
Very
Normally,
good.
if you want to open a hood, there's a flexible cable, or just a little hook here, but you probably can't see, but there's handles here, one for each side.
And I'll go in and get that handle.
Forward.
And that's the handle for the
Yeah.
to open the trunk, and there's one on the other side also.
Okay, as you can see, we opened this up rather traditionally. Now, I thought you were going to see the motor, but what you see is the air cleaner. Turns out that this spot was originally made for a 6-cylinder engine, but the V8 came along, so they had some problems making everything fit together, so the air cleaner sort of got hung up here. Now you notice, once again, a nice little touch. We have a bronze nut here, the cast. Put this aside, and well, what is this? Well, this is the air cleaner, right? And so you kind of get a close-up of that. You'll notice we're going to unscrew that. Well, if you wanted to get the air cleaner, the filter element out, you would have to unscrew that. So instead of doing an over-center piece of plastic, why we have something in which they machined, a piece of aluminum which they machined out of some bar stock, and then they knurled the edges here so that your fingers wouldn't slip. And it's just a nice little touch if you like a Rolls Royce. Now, same thing here, another little knurled nut, and there we go.
And
there's the engine. We have two 2-inch SU carburetors. It's a 6 1/4 liter engine, roughly a 383, I think.
But it looks like the carburetors are hidden on the other side. Oh no, here's one.
Here's the
here's
carburetors.
one.
Yeah, there's 2 SU carburetors, one on each side.
And you have to keep oil in that dash pot.
Oh yes, right.
And you always have to check that oil in the dash pot to make
Otherwise
sure
the car stumbles.
Right. And there's 2 belts for the fan.
Well, there's 4 belts actually. That's the generator.
Oh, 2 belts for the generator.
Air conditioning, and then the other's the water pump.
So that way, if one breaks on the road, you still.
Well, what happens if one breaks here, it knocks them all off.
Oh.
To tighten them up, you have to climb under the car and undo the pulley here.
Oh.
And so it gets to be a real mess.
Exactly.
It's interesting to point out that this was the people who actually sold the car. Meads of Maidenhead, they no longer exist. But and here, of course, is the chassis plate.
And that's the chassis number.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the air conditioner.
Right, and
Here's the air conditioner.
that's from the factory back then.
This is kind of interesting. There's 2 brake circuits. One works right front and left rear, and then works right front and left rear. And so you don't have the usual worry about running out of brakes. In addition, there's a 3rd braking system, which is strictly mechanical. And so when you put your foot on the brake, you're actually actuating 3 braking systems. So long before multiple braking systems were available, why Rolls-Royce had them all beat.
That's true.
Essentially the evolution of a 1940 General Motors hydromatic transmission, in which there was no park labeled, but actually park was reversed. So if you put it in reverse and turn off the engine, little pawl goes through the drive shaft and it's locked. If you look at any modern literature, people talking about these cars, they say, "Oh, there's no park." There's a park. Maybe you can cut some of that out. The seating position is much more like a sports car. This was, in point of fact, an evolution of a Bentley S3 Continental, and that was supposed to be the company really sporting version. And so the seat is lower, and the steering wheel is rated considerably more vertically. So if you're driving a standard steel silver cloud, you sort of feel like you're doing this. You're perched up on a lovely bench, and so the end result is you really feel quite grand.
Right.
It took a year and a half. It's a four-bear story, very amusing. But anyway, so the thing that I like about the car then is that I feel like I'm driving a great big Corvette or a great big Haley.
So how long have you had this now?
About 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, about three and a half.
And I see there's a nice picnic table there, or is that just for writing checks?
Oh no, actually these things are really very handy. You know, if you're traveling, why you may very well pick up some food to go, so you can just put it right there.
Right.
I was a little bit worried about ruining your veneer. The other thing about this car that is kind of a very interesting design feature is, as I said, it's not like any other Rolls-Royce. There's 107 of this, and then they threw away the mold. One of the things is the dashboard is really very different. They put all the instruments in this stall here, and then this sort of thing here, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. So the dashboard started out with leather up here, and the usual walnut veneer there. And then it finally occurred to me what they were doing. The dashboard simply flows into the car. So you see this is the leather on the top, leather on the bottom, and a person by the name of Wilhelm Koren, who the executives from Rolls-Royce found at the Turin Motor Show, and they liked the Alfa Romeo coupe that he had made, and so they hired him to design the car that was the predecessor to this. And so whenever you read the books about the Wilhelm Koren, there's three references I just ran across. One had him be a Swede, one had him be a Norwegian, and one had him be a Dane.
Yeah.
And but we know he was a Scandinavian of some sort.
Right.
He designed the S2, and then he didn't like what they were doing with his S3 with the four headlights and this little bit of chrome, so he left. They offered him the job of chief stylist for Rolls-Royce Bentley motor cars, and he turned them down. He went off to the Royal College of Art and Design Furniture for the rest of his life.
Oh.
So anyway, this is the car. Once again, we want to emphasize that the reason I bought the car is just got the best driving position of any Rolls-Royce one could possibly imagine, and that's kind of what I think it's all about.
Great. Sounds good.
A feature which is necessarily unique to just S3 Silver Cloud 3 Rolls-Royce, but you'll notice that we have these little locked containers here on both sides, right?
Is that for alcohol?
And if you open it up, and there's room for 2 flasks and 3 cut glass crystals, so you can drink and drive.
You're right. There's the flask hidden away, so
there's
and it's locked so the police can't prove it.
And so there's another one on the side for bigger bottles and bigger glasses. So you could at very modest extra cost have a bar built right into your car.
Exactly. And because it's a coach-built car, each of these cars may have had a different cubby.
Yeah, sure.
So this shows that this car was coach-built by HJ Mulliner Park Ward Limited.
The story goes that I bought the car and, of course, asked Rolls-Royce asked the RREC for the papers. And they said it was owned by some guy, a Greek shipping agent, by the name of Mavrolian. And so I called up the British Consul General and said, "Hey, you got a phone number for Mavrolian in Grosvenor Square?" And they gave me one. So I dialed it up, and lo and behold, Mavrolian answered the phone. And well, it turns out he was the wrong from Mavrolian. It was Uncle Basil who had actually bought the car in 1960. But they recommended me to his nephew in New York, who drove a Ferrari Daytona, but he referred me to the head of the Bentley Drivers Club, who fortuitously had worked for Mavrolian as a company executive of some sort. And it turns out that the Mavrolian owned the car for 2 weeks. Now mind, he paid 150% of the price of a new Bentley Continental, and he waited a year for the car to be built. And he kept it for 2 weeks and sold it. So my question was, did I buy the Bentley bummer here or something? It turns out that Mavrolian, this is the story, it's straight from Sans Cheswick, he was there, it's not apocryphal. And Mavrolian was sitting in the back seat, okay? And his son and the Mavrolian son and Cedric were in the front seat. For some reason or other, Mavrolian wanted to get out of the car. At this point, he discovered that the only way he could get out of the car is if the people in the front got out of the car and shoved the seat forward, and then he could get out, and he simply couldn't wait that long. So upon returning to the city, it was part exchange for a four-door saloon.
So he made a wrong judgment call.